Both players are ready to start. First map is going to be Metropolis.
Ooh, really? That's an interesting TVZ setting.
Yeah.
It's a very large map. It can lead to some incredibly long TVZs and ones that involve some very high tech. So we may be getting off. This is actually going to be kind of a weird setting for Polt style of Terran play, though, I think.
Well, let's see. I just heard that Polt against Sniper, he showed some amazing play. Of course, we need to remember the last match that Polt won was against Mutualist play. Leonov, he has a bit of a different style, which we'll love to talk to you about really soon here as the game gets started.
And here we are, players getting ready. We're jumping into map number 1 here between Violet and Polt.
IPL 5.
What's on your mind?
Welcome to IPL 5 Metropolis.
And here we have, at the 12 o'clock position on Metropolis, our red Zerg player who's been fighting all the way from winners round 1. He is...
Azubu Violet.
That's Violet there. Has been on a tear. Rhymed a little bit there. It just keeps going, I'm sorry. Down here at the 6 o'clock position, we have our blue Terran player, the lone remaining Terran player in the tournament. It is...
TSL Polt.
Grubby, I think the crowd is clearly behind Polt right now.
Yeah, of course, it might be a little bit of bias to see a non-mirror matchup finals. Nothing against Violet. I know Violet is very popular here in the United States. By the way, I have to consider I'm a little lucky. I was able to find the lady who did the big scream in the crowd. Kind of a small chance. Yeah, she can open her mouth really wide. It was impressive.
Well,
I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry.
So, we mentioned before that Metropolis can sometimes stabilize into some very long, very high-tech TVZs. Now, Polt is usually the kind of player who loves to play bio. We've mentioned this a couple times in this tournament, but he's gone on record as saying, I'm going to play bio till I die. I enjoy it. I think it's more fun. He is very flexible. He can adapt to his opponent's situations. But, you know, this is a map where if it stretches into the late game, I want to know what his unit composition is going to be. He's already used battle cruisers in this tournament. We'll start to see that sort of transition.
Yeah, so right now the community, when they think about TVZ, they pretty much consider that Terran can make this really powerful late game army. Once you get to an army where Terran has Ravens, Vikings, Thors, battle cruisers, full upgrades, nuclear missiles, Yamato cannon, all that, when you assemble all that, you can have an army that can be incredibly powerful and maybe even better than the late game Zerg army. Most people agree on this, Seeker missiles and all that, but it's so hard to get there.
Yeah.
And you can't just go there straight away. Usually you need to go through the motions, you start with Marines, tanks, medivacs and all that, and only once you get to the point where you have 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 bases, counting one of the islands, can you assemble an army like that. So is that something that Polt is going to go for, or will he try to go for a quicker win?
Well, he started with the command center first, and we'll see what he gets to. Yeah, you mentioned that it's so difficult to get to that point, because it's about that moment, 16 minutes or about 22, 23 minutes, where Zerg is incredibly strong right now. They can tech up very quickly, they can get those mass infestors, get that Broodlord army out there, and it's very difficult for Terran players to stop. Although some Terran players, Polt included, have been trying to find some creative ways to get around that problem.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've seen, for example, from a player like Bomber, and of course a lot of the very pro Terrans, they're trying to poke a lot of holes in the economy of Zerg. If you can't be strong, you gotta be smart. So if you can't face the Zerg army head on, you gotta try and take down their economy and try to delay them getting to that ultimate late game army for as long as possible. Now Violet, if we compare it to some of the other Zergs who got really deep into this tournament, we've got Dangregu and we've got Sniper. They love going for that Zergling, Mutalisk and Baneling composition. Whereas Violet, he is, let's say, a bit more of a traditional Zerg. his style reflects more what most Zergs are playing right now, which is going for that infestor composition. And also because Violet mostly plays on another server, North American server and not so much from Korea, or maybe not at all, because he's living in the United States, his style is feeling a bit different. It's hard to put your finger on it, but it just feels a little different. And maybe that is giving him an unexpected advantage against some of the Korean players here.
You're absolutely right. We're already seeing it in this game, as a matter of fact. A lot of Korean Zerg players have stopped doing that. So no gas for Queen, get lots of creep tumors out their build. They've been incorporating gas a little bit quicker, making sure that they're getting their speed, that they can tech up quickly. Not going to be the case for Violet. He's bypassed gas. He's got 4 Queens on the field. In fact, he's going for the 6 Queen build. And this was something that got popular when the 4 Queen build was rising up. It fell off of popularity a bit faster, but it can still be used very effectively in certain situations.
Yeah, the first time we saw that 6 Queen build was, of course, when the Queen range was increased from 3 to 5. It was in an attempt to kind of break through the very stale metagame where Terrans always were making a lot of Hellions and trying to control the Zerg from leaving their base. So it was very long a 2 versus 2 base situation. And Blizzard wanted to try and create more strategical variety in the matchup. So they said if Zerg is able to defend a bit better with Queens first, we're going to see a bit later games. And maybe Terran will be forced to play a bit different. And in a sense, it's been successful. Terrans, they kind of exceeded what boundaries they thought they previously had.
Now, Polt is obviously doing something pretty interesting as well. He's not gone up to Banshees whatsoever. He's already invested back into his bio. He's got 3 barracks, multiple add-ons on the way, and just a single engineering bay. A lot of Terran players nowadays going for that bio style, put up that early 3rd command center, double engineering bays, and hit towards that little bit later engagement. In this case, it's not going to be the case. Maybe looking to hit something with Marauders and Hellions a little bit earlier on, coinciding with +1, but certainly a bit different look. So this is already shaping up to be a little bit less standard TVZ than we've seen lately.
Yeah, definitely. But I do remember seeing Polt play this before. In fact, in Lone Star Clash #1 in Texas, we saw that Polt against Stefano, they had this really epic tug-of-war battles where they were constantly trading units. Zerglings and Roaches against Marauders and Hellions. And every time it looked like one of them was winning the fight, the other would come in with a new flow, a new wave of reinforcements, and then overtake the other. And it would just be constant, non-stop fighting. So Polt, he's looking to get into Violet's phase very, very early from here. And Violet, he doesn't know if it's just one factory with reactor Hellions, if there's going to be a big Marine stim timing after this, or indeed, as we see, 2 barracks making Marauders with that stim pack.
And he's going to have Stim, Combat Shields +1, and a lot of forces all at about the same time. Now, he will need to do a little bit of damage with this. Because of the 6 Queens, because of the great creep spread, the early 3 bases, Violet has been able to invest into his economy very early on. And if Polt is able to make his way out there, do some damage, he's going to be in great shape. But otherwise, he's obviously foregone his 3rd command center for a very long time. That is going to set his economy back compared to normal Terran play.
Yeah, definitely, Kevin. And also, we do often see triple orbital hand in hand with that double engineering bay. All of it speaks of the late game. And as you correctly pointed out, we only have 1 engineering bay and we only have 2 orbitals. And well, if we look at how the timings are going to line up, we look at Polt. Obviously, he wants to wait until he has Stim pack. All right, now the Violet knows what's going to happen. But I was just saying, once Stim pack finishes, that's when Polt wants to fight. And look at the timing of Violet of his 1-1 upgrades. It's going to finish at exactly the same time. So they're both going to be more or less ready for that fight. So very much will come down to how they engage.
This could become a little bit of an anti-timing for Polt, depending on how it's engaged, like you just said. Now, obviously, Violet has not been producing a ton of units yet. It's been a lot of infrastructure. He's gone up to 3 bases. He's got a lot of creep spread, a lot of upgrades going up to layer tech. Everything's hitting in that regard, but now he's forced into making a ton of units. He had preemptively made his Baneling Nest just to make sure he would stay safe, but this is a lot of units coming out from Polt, and it is designed to do some serious damage to Violet. Baneling's making the way through, but look at the Marauders up at the front, tanking all the shots. All the Marines were pulled back just perfectly, and the Queens are dying 1 by 1. No transfusions being used, and Polt is doing some massive damage to Violet right now.
Great micro by Polt, taking down the high energy Queens first. All the Banelings detonated on Marauders, and that was just beautiful micro by Polt. But he just has this massive army, way bigger than Violet expected, and it doesn't look like Violet is able to muster the correct amount of forces to take this down.
No, he absolutely cannot. The Zerglings are just going to come out piecemeal, just a few at a time. They have to be sent to the side. They have to wait to group up, and every second that he waits to do that, Polt is going to move further and further. He's going to do more economic damage. We can see drones pulled preemptively off the line, off to the left-hand side, and now Polt is doing some very real damage to those drones.
Look how many Hellions are still alive. They're perfect to take down these drones here who are being used.
That's right, and our last Terran player in the tournament looks like he's going to take a quick 1-0 lead here in this game. What an incredible performance. What a great attack from Polt.
What a powerful timing attack here. There was nothing Violet could do. He just prepared too much for the late game. He saw that attack coming, but as soon as he saw it, there was no way back.
So Polt continuing to reinforce. Now he's got 3 more barracks coming up back at home just in case, but he's already significantly limited his opponent's economy. He's already done incredible damage to, well, pretty much every facet of Violet's game. The Baneling Nest is down. The drones are all killed. He's only on 34 workers. He's only got 24 Zerglings to his name. He's trying to rally in whatever queens he can, but Polt's position just continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah, Violet's still scrambling to try and get enough units out, but as it stands, he's mostly making Zerglings. I don't think he has a Roach Warren on the map even, which is kind of what you need against this type of attack, because the Hellions are just too good against the Zerglings and Banelings alone.
All right, well, here come the rest of the units from Violet. There's still so many Hellions out in front. Looks like the Zerglings may be able to clean up just these few units that are sitting here, but the damage has been done. Polt has taken a significant lead in this game.
Yeah, we see 31 drones were killed by Polt. Violet is down to just 34 drones. He's trying to rally here. You've got to admire his tenacity as he's making 6 more infestors with that pathogen glands, and maybe with the correct amount of fungals, maybe with very cost-efficient amount of banelings and so forth, maybe some burrowed landmines, banelings, he might be able to turn this around. All is not lost, but it's looking very, very tough and challenging for him.
And this is game 1 of a best of 5. If you give Polt a 10-minute win like that, he's riding a lot of confidence. He didn't expend a lot of energy. And maybe Violet certainly wants to make sure that he stretches this game out a little bit longer. He does have 8 infestors popping up. The last 2 are just on the way now. And he will have a decent army back at home. But Polt now has his 3rd base. He's going up to a 4th command center. His tech is all magnificent. He's already on tanks and medevacs. He has the flexibility to move into his later upgrades too. And we'll see what Violet plans to do to stretch out this game a bit longer.
Yeah, I'm very happy you brought that up, Gavin, because as a pro gamer myself, I've often been in situations where I look at my score and it's like 2-2, and I look, the games that I won were very easy, for example. The games that I lost were very hard. And then it could be, actually, I mean, the games that I won, like they were very hard, and then the games I lost, I got eliminated super hard. Then I think, even though it's 2-2, like everything was so hard, and then I have less confidence for that last game. So if Violet can somehow make Polt, make some mistakes, even if he's in a dominating position where he can't lose, if just he can let Polt make some mistakes where Polt doesn't feel proud anymore of that victory as much, where Polt cannot say, yeah, I played flawlessly, everything went exactly how it went, how I wanted it to go, then Violet will have 1 up on Polt.
That's a great point, because Polt, I mean, he has a strong army right now, but it's not the kind of army that he could just blindly rush forward on creep into whatever Violet may have waiting for him. So he's got to sit back, he's got to stretch this game out, and now he's got to get to a position where he knows he's in a completely unlosable position.
Yeah, look at this. I like what Violet did. Gets his infestors out first to possibly defend against any follow-up attack and to start gathering up energy. And we just saw a wave of 21 drones coming in.
So the economy for Violet is certainly going to start getting back there, but he needs to play the delay game. Polt going into his trademark dropping now. He'll need to do this continuing to keep his opponent pinned down on 3 bases. And again, Polt doesn't have to do a ton of damage with these right now. All he has to do is he has to keep Violet back, he has to keep him pinned on 3 bases, and not getting to the point where he can start expanding all the way across the map. Because if Violet gets on 4 or 5 bases, then he's still going to be in a pretty decent position. Infestors making their way forward now. They capture a few units up at the front. 1 infestor goes down. A 2nd may fall here in just a moment. It does. So Polt is actually doing some pretty good damage with this. A 3rd infestor.
Whoa.
Good fungal growth hitting all the units though, and the units just barely staying alive.
Very, very close there. 1 more fungal could have been quite terrible for Polt there, but Polt nicely focused those infestors away. He target fired them down. 3 infestors went down or so. And now Violet, he has the gas to make more infestors, but he's not sure whether he has the time. They take quite long to come out, and for now he's just investing in Zerglings and Banelings. And look at that supply differential. 50 supply up by Polt at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if positions were reversed and it was, 158 to 120, we'd look at Polt and we'd say, oh, he's not doing that bad of a job, because Violet has to be some supply ahead at this stage in the game if you're a Zerg player. But with this reverse, it's actually a devastating position for Violet. Nice job, though, capturing a lot of units with those fungal growths and at least pinning back those units for a while Violet gets everything in position. But Polt's done a nice job of cleaning up the creep on this side. Fungal growths hitting up at the front. The Zerglings rushing in from behind. Not all of the Marines were in position, and they are actually quite bunched up, so the Zerglings and Banelings are able to get a good hit, but this is a testament to how good Polt's production and macro were, how far ahead he had gotten himself the early part of this game. Even with a decent engagement from Violet, Polt comes out with a huge advantage.
Yeah, and look at Polt thinking, hey, no fourth base. Nice. Normally at this point, Zerg should already have a fourth base, maybe working on a fifth and also having Broodlords, but as it stands, Violet is just fighting with a tier 2 army and he's doing all he can just to survive.
Now, the players that actually set out to just use a tier 2 army, as some Zerg players are fond of against Terran players, and just throwing huge amounts of aggression, as it looks like we have a little bit of a pause here. We'll get back into this here in just a second. Looks like our stream is down. Okay, so we're commentating for you guys, and you guys only. All right. As long as I hear the war horn, that's all that matters to me, really. I'm okay then, so.
But just to be nice to the people at home, we'll try to get the stream back up, I suppose.
That's right. So let's talk about the positions these players are in right now. Obviously, Polt is doing pretty magnificently. He did everything that he needed at the very beginning to put himself quite far ahead in this game. He got to the point, even we mentioned it right there, where Violet got a decent engagement. Wasn't the best he could have hoped for, but not bad. But Polt still, with the forces he's rallied, with what he was bringing from the back, still was just doing incredibly well, has a huge advantage still.
Yeah, and even if the fights look like Violet is still surviving, upgrade-wise, supply-wise, expansion-wise, Polt is so much more far ahead than where he would normally be given Violet's situation in this case. Polt is working on his 3-3 upgrades, 3-3 for Marines and Marauders, and also the second attack upgrade for vehicles, weapons like tanks. And Violet, he's only just finishing up 2-2. He didn't have Baneling speed yet in most of those engagements, so it was very hard for those Banelings to connect.
Now, we're also 20 minutes into this game. Violet's been on 3 bases the entire time. And even with limited workers, he's going to get to the point where he's almost mined out of those bases pretty soon.
Yeah, it seems like he already doesn't have full mineral patches left in his main base, so Violet is already on an economy of less than 3 bases. And Polt, he just landed his 4th base on the left side of the map. So Polt probably feeling pretty good, and maybe now using the break a little bit to start thinking about next game.
Yeah, and you know, that's actually may work out to Polt a little bit. We mentioned before kind of the mental game, but about 10 minutes into this game, Polt had a significant advantage, to the point where I don't think anyone would have faulted Violet if he had tapped out, if he had GG'd right there.
Yeah.
The game's still going on. We're about 10 minutes further than that. Polt is still way ahead. He's still likely to win this game, but Violet stretched this out. So now Polt gets to sit back and think, okay, I'm in a really good spot. I can start to collect my confidence back a bit.
Yeah, because anytime an opponent is trying to mess with your mind, you'll always have the ability to counter-mess with it. There's no amount of trash talk or game like manipulation that a player can do to you that you cannot somehow counteract through sheer force of will. So this little break here is very important for a player to try and rally his thoughts and not let himself be rattled. Even if he makes a mistake now, he can say, well, it wasn't, like, it probably wasn't important now, because even with Polt has some margin of error now, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you're absolutely right. We mentioned before that he could actually lose a couple cost-effective engagements for Violet, and he'd still be doing all right, just because of the sheer production facilities that he has back at home, and what he's rallying to the front, where his upgrade advantages, the amount of economy that he's already limited, that's paid dividends earlier on. So, without thinking too far forward, though, where does Violet go from here in Game 2? What is his thought process, I guess, more than anything else?
Well, at this moment, we see that Violet is teching to Hive already. So if he can somehow survive on 3 bases and get his Hive done, he's looking to get some very cost-efficient units. Now, I'm not sure, I don't think there's a Spire on the map, and he's not building one. When a Zerg wants to go for Broodlords, they will build their Spire and upgrade their Hive at the same time, because the building and the upgrade time of the Hive and the Spire, respectively, is equal. So immediately when the Hive finishes, you can start upgrading your Spire to your greatest Spire. Not seeing that Spire yet tells us that Violet probably wants to go for Ultralisk here.
And now, that wouldn't be necessarily a bad choice, except for the fact that Polt, the shortest attack path from him to his opponent's bases, is up along that right-hand side. And that entire game, he's been doing a great job of knocking out all the creep tumors there. When those Ultralisks are a little bit less maneuverable, when they're off of creep, they're not nearly as effective as when they're on there.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. In the meantime, Violet is trying to capitalize on that by sending the creep tumors on the left side of the map. He's already passing that halfway mark. And that may give him some ability to counterattack maybe with Ultralisk, do some Ultralisk harassment in various bases. But yeah, most of all, Violet needs to try and win the main fight and try and get that 4th base out, which is so close to Polt's attack route. And another thing that's really working against Violet here is that Polt already has Marauders mixed into his army. Often we see Terrans, they have a lot of barracks with reactors, maybe 1, maybe 2 tech labs on their barracks, just to upgrade combat, shield, stim pack, concussive grenades, and so forth. And they'll be making 13 Marines at a time, and they could only start 1 or 2 Marauders at a time once they detect that surprise Ultralisk cavern. As it stands, 3 Marauders at a time are already being produced. So he's using them not just for potential Ultralists or for that early rush, but also because they tank against Banelings better.
All right, so let's hear it from our crowd out there right now. Who thinks that our last Terran player is going to take this first game here in this set? All right, well, the Terran fans are still alive. The Terran fans are still out there and cheering. It seems like every time I look up, the Thundersticks are multiplying too. I don't know how that's happening. They're like little rabbits, but anyway. I love the spontaneous, we're gonna do it. All right. Thundersticks in force. Game is still paused right now. So.
I love Thundersticks.
Yeah, I do too. Except for last year, I don't know if you guys, I'm going to talk about League of Legends for just a second. In the League of Legends room at IPL 4, like everyone had Thundersticks. Everyone had like 6 Thundersticks though, and it was the most annoying thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I just wanted to punch all of them, blow them all up.
How do you clap 6 Thundersticks at a time? Under your armpits, 2 on your feet, and 2 in your hands?
Yeah, I guess that's... Thank you for the visual. I appreciate it. Wouldn't have it without that. Now, this is an appropriate amount of Thundersticks, though. I like this. I like this. This is well done. An appropriate amount of Warhorn, too.
Thanks for bringing the Vuvuzelas here.
Yes, of course. I wish we would have had, like, actually 30 of them, though. We could have just imagined that we were the South African World Cup the whole time.
Yeah.
Just everyone's like, no, no, thank you, please.
People have been admiring the Vuvuzela guy's endurance. Good points about him. He cheers for every player, and he cheers all day long. Very good endurance.
Yes, that's right. Do you play a musical instrument? Give us a horn blow if you play a musical instrument.
1 horn blow, yes. 2 horn blows, no.
Trombone. He says trombone.
Trombone.
Okay. That makes sense. Why did you bring your trombone? You could have just done sad trombone. Womp, womp, every time someone lost. Anyway. Now you know the pause has gone on for a while. We're talking to each member of the crowd one by one.
Yeah.
So
what's your name, sir?
Let's see. All right.
So it's a very difficult situation for a player to be in this situation. I mean, it's hard to keep your mindset there. You've got all this adrenaline pumping, and suddenly you need to relax yourself. Do you drink some water? Do you allow yourself to think about your next move? Or do you just try to keep it cool and don't think about anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you've been faced with a similar situation, so you can tell us, but I would think that this would be relatively difficult. Polt's got to be feeling confident right now. He knows the amount of damage that he's done, so looks like actually, we'll talk about that in a second, because we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this once the stream gets back up. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back for game number 1, the conclusion of that between Polt and Violet.
Thanks for bearing with us.
The new AMD A-Series APUs give you discrete-level graphics and multi-core CPU power, all on one chip.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Who's ready for the last 30 seconds of game number 1? Now, it looks like we are back in live once again, so everyone who is joining us from around the world, we appreciate you for tuning in. We, of course, have a best of 5 now between Polt and Violet. The winner of this moves on to play Leonok for a $40,000 first prize. That will be a best of 5, and if the loser's bracket competitor wins the first best of 5, then we'll actually move into a best of 3 right afterwards. But we're ready to jump back into the game. The game has restarted.
It would be so ironic if this game really ended in like 10 to 30 seconds. But then again, we don't want anyone to miss a single second. So.
Yeah. Well, it started at 1951, so I'm going to see how close I get. Anyway, Polt rolling up the right side of the map. Again, we mentioned before how good of a job he's done at stopping the creeps right over here. This gives him a beautiful attack path that he can stage all of his units up and make sure that he can get all of his tanks in position without having to worry about any sort of backstabs. Looks like Violet trying a couple of things here with some burrow bailings, and we'll see if Polt bites on that.
Yeah, of course, there's a scan because there's so many creep tumors. It's a very basic move for Polt. It's good for him that he's not skipping such basic moves, so the bailing bombs weren't able to amount to anything. Polt now attacking, he's making a move on the third base, and he's also cutting off the attack, the counter-attack from Violet in positioning his tank army there. He does not need to unsiege those tanks, so there's not even a possibility for Violet to catch the tanks on siege.
Yeah, I mean, Violet's doing a good job of picking off reinforcements, but he has no way to deal with the army that's up at the front now. And it looks like it is finally going to bite. It's going to make its way down here, but there are 2 tanks. It actually gets surrounded pretty well. Violet's able to capture most of those forces. The tanks have already exacted their toll, though. We can see that reflected in the supply. 100 supply difference between our 2 players, and Violet is about to lose his third.
Yeah, and as he loses his third, he loses the base with the most available minerals there. So Violet is taking a huge hit in the economy, and Polt looks like he's sealing down this game.
Yeah, so he has a lot of forces out there, actually all back at home for now. You can see tanks positioned just in case there's going to be Zergling run-bys, but now we're on a 5th base for Polt. He's continuing to clear up creep tumors, and now he's going to start pushing into the natural. There's actually only 25 Zerglings on the map for Violet. That's the only army he has.
And Polt's 3-3 upgrades finish. GG. Polt will take the first.
Wasn't 30 seconds, it was 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
But the point remains, game number 1 goes to our last Terran player here in the tournament. Violet, a little bit on the back foot to start this loser's bracket final. And Violet is a player who made a magnificent run through this entire bracket. Started winners round 1. We mentioned the players that he's beaten before. Made it all the way to the winners finals, only falling to Leonok. But now finds himself in a bad position against Polt. And Polt is a guy who can take an advantage and stretch it. He's also a guy, if he's at an early disadvantage, as we saw against Bomber, can find a way back in.
Yeah, of course, that might be, yeah, I mean, that's in a big way to be attributed to Polt, of course. Also, of course, there's this rumor about Bomber that supposedly he always goes very far, but then just doesn't make it close to the mark. I don't know, I think you have to really credit Polt for that too. It's certainly not easy to make a comeback, especially in StarCraft, where the player who is ahead can really start